It was the holiday of 2002. Boys and girls of all ages anxiously awaited the arrival of the big red guy with a beard to bring them presents and holiday cheer. Timmy wants some new Transformers, Samantha wants a copy of the Barbie Rapunzel movie, and Chaz, well, he wants one of those horrible Jackstone Lego sets that almost bankrupt the company. After they laid out cookies and milk for their eventual intruder, they raced to bed to get a couple hours of sleep before inevitably waking up their parents way too early to tear into a pile of gifts. What they each received, though,
was far worse than they could have ever imagined.
It was in this hallowed year of 2002, year of our Lord, that the fabled Big Sky Interactive would release their magnum opus, SpongeBob SquarePants: Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, and then seemingly disappeared into the night, never to be heard from again. While the title won the Kids' Choice Award for Favorite Game in 2003, these days it's widely criticized, to put it mildly. The real reason it won that award was we got to watch Dwayne Johnson's epic, totally real gameplay on a giant, definitely functional controller.
Here we go! You go to town right there! Here we go, Rock! Yeah! You get that guy! Go!
What's the matter?
Rock!
Look at your protein shake.
Watch out for the green! For the green guy!
Is as thick as his
Watch out for
bicep.
You gotta get the jellyfish!
Oh, now I know where the rock
here's
is.
the
It's
skeleton.
in your head.
Watch out for the skeleton!
You.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I've got 26-inch pipes. Let me do the job.
You get that guy!
What you likely don't know, though, is that what we now call Revenge of the Flying Dutchman went through many different transformations over the course of its turbulent development. In fact, the original tech demo and pitch document that they presented to THQ at GDC 2001 were almost entirely unrecognizable to the final product. Today, I want to take a closer look and finally examine this demo build publicly and read through the pages of this initial design doc for the first time ever in this special report from
none other than SpongeBob. SpongeBob, Johnny Bravo kicking by the beach bar. DJ making me feel like a big star.
Before we begin, it's important to point out that Big Sky Interactive didn't exist at the time that these development materials were created. Throughout 2001 and well into 2002, they were known as Callisto USA and existed as a subsidiary of a French studio aptly named Callisto Entertainment. The parent company were known for games they made like Nightmare Creatures, or under a different studio name, Pack in Time. Years prior, Callisto France had internally developed a game creation engine known as Totem Tech, and often used this technology to create small demos that would initially wow the high-ups at various publishers, which would then lead to getting contracts to develop full games. The USA team utilized this strategy to full effect when they learned that THQ were looking for a team to create the first 3D platformer based on the SpongeBob SquarePants franchise.
A handful of people, mostly artists, took the technology that we'd been working on and created a full, working level of SpongeBob in 2 weeks. The demo had gameplay, platforms, animations, a collection of items, and a working HUD. One artist, Damon Shelton, generated 11 character models in just 3 days. Janet O created the environments, and Tony Salvaggio animated SpongeBob. Fred Mizak, lead programmer on Jimmy Neutron, coded our demo. We also had a solid game design doc and project plan generated as support for the game assets. While the competition may have had a design doc or some models, maybe some superior to our quick work versions, we had a full playable demo working on the target platform in the form of a PS2 disc. Matt Skibilia, GIGnews.com, July 2002.
Flash forward to 2025, and unfortunately, a playable version has had yet to surface. I know for a fact that a copy of it does exist. However, I was last told that it's unsalvageable due to the condition of the disc. Whether or not that was true, or I was lied to, frankly, I can't say. Luckily though, several screenshots of the exact same build running in the Totem Tech engine have surfaced that paint a much clearer picture of how it played, and how bizarre it was. Jump scare. So here we are with our Bikini Bottom pals in front of Squidward and Patrick's houses, and right away, there's a lot to address. For one, each character stands motionless, lifeless, Their cold, dead eyes burrow into the soul and see your deepest fears. Okay, but seriously, if you thought Revenge of the Flying Dutchman was creepy, it's got nothing on Tech Demo Patrick. When I first saw this image years ago, I immediately pictured a creepypasta where some child finds the unmarked hard copy of this demo at a Goodwill, and Patrick.exe proceeds to come out of the TV, kill their parents, and kick their dog. Plankton stands next to Squidward, and he seems much bigger than he's supposed to be. Little Sheldon is a big boy now and doesn't need a booster seat. At first glance, it appears that he's standing over the treasure chest in the foreground, looking shocked and amazed by whatever's inside, but from what I can tell, this is actually just an illusion created by the angle of the shot. What this treasure chest is for is unclear, but we'll come back to that shortly. The lighting of the whole area certainly doesn't help assuage the analog horror vibes, but that could also just be the fact that these screenshots are all in black and white and have gone through like 3 tiers of document scanning. For some reason, there's a spotlight effect over Squidward specifically. I initially wondered if this was a way to highlight a character that SpongeBob could be interacting with, but based on later images, this lighting appears permanently affixed to this one spot. I suppose Squiddy is just ascending to another plane of existence again. One thing that really catches me off guard is the bamboo shoots sticking out from the sides of Squidward's home. Initially, I couldn't tell what these were actually supposed to be. I thought that maybe it was grass or seaweed from behind the tiki head representing the garden that exists in the final game, but no, it's bamboo. I'm just an idiot. This seems like a really bizarre inclusion at first. Why would this bamboo be here? As far as I can recall, this was never in the show. Well, a few weeks after I first noticed this detail, I happened to be looking through concept art of the cartoon itself. Oh, this bamboo is featured in Steven Hillenburg's early concept art, so its inclusion in the demo established art of the cartoon itself. Oh, this bamboo is featured in Steven Hillenburg's early concept art, so its inclusion in the demo establishes one thing in my mind. Janet O, the environment designer on the development team, had probably never watched the show up to that point. This means that she was working solely off of the vague ideas presented in this art, which was likely sent to Callisto along with other assets when they expressed interest in working on the game. As a full-grown woman in the early 2000s, we can hardly blame her. Not everyone is as sophisticated as myself. Even still, it's interesting to point out. Lastly, you may notice the mysterious floating orb above Squidward's right arm. If we move on to another shot, we get a clearer look at the same spheres. Closer inspection doesn't really help us pinpoint their purpose. My initial theory was that it's a collectible of some kind, though I do have some more fleshed out theories later on. Looking at them from this angle, if this is a collectible, the orbs in front of Squid's house might move along the lines of this wireframe shape to add extra challenge in collecting them. Perhaps all of the orbs move in some way. Here we also get a good look at SpongeBob's pineapple. The pineapple's door seems oversized, the window positions don't look quite right, and the fronds on the top look more like the hair of the world's deadliest troll doll than the leaves we have come to expect. Off to the left, you'll see what appears to be a Krabby Patty collectible, which makes sense given the giant Krabby Patty counter in the first image. Up above the patty, Patrick's rock is bald, as it doesn't appear to have its signature TV antenna. This exclusion makes the first image, up above the patty, Patrick's rock is bald, as it doesn't appear to have its signature TV antenna. This exclusion makes it look rather dull, just a big gray blob sticking out of the ground. In front of SpongeBob's house, we get a side view of Gary and Mr. Krabs, and the next picture gives us a closer look at these models. Honestly, there's not too much to point out here, except of course what looks like a tiny version of the classic car muffler houses behind them. It's also worth mentioning that Mr. Krabs looks almost exactly like the final version of the model that they ended up using, besides some minor edits around the waist and his lack of a nose. There's also part of another orb up to the left, and something is cut off to the right, but I have no clue what it could be. The barren wasteland on the horizon continues to make this whole thing unnerving. This next image doesn't show us much more than we've already seen, but we get a slightly clearer view of Patrick's antennaless rock, and we see a single frame of SpongeBob's walk cycle. Also, there's an even tinier house to the left of Patrick. Why are these here? Did they not understand what these were supposed to be?
Excuse me while I crash out over this!
Next up, we see SpongeBob in action, doing some platforming across some cylindrical towers. SpongeBob's model is clearly a lot bendier and kind of rubber hosey than the later, oddly stiff version is. We also see some more patties scattered around, and a couple of floating orbs that almost seem smaller than the others. And now we get our best look at what seems to be the entire level. Unfortunately for Squidward, someone has apparently cut his house in half and removed the back entirely. I didn't fully process this fact until now, but it's pretty clear that his house is just the front side in this previous image. It's probably safe to assume that the pineapple and rock are halved as well, but we never see them from an angle where we could say for sure. Look out for the madman with a knife destroying people's houses! Ooh. These cubes in the foreground must be floating to the left of Patrick's rock, but like most things we've looked at so far, their purpose isn't entirely clear. Looking at them, I would guess that they're platforms, and maybe you can use them to reach this high up orb. But let's consider these orbs again. What exactly are they? They could be bubbles, I suppose? And in some early promotional footage from a later build, we do see some kind of similar orb collectible that appears to take the place of the patties, or the eventual doubloons. But I have another possible theory. In my 2019 interview with Matt Scabilia for my documentary on the Who Needs Normal channel, he told me that the demo they created included quote-unquote SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, and Squidward animated models, and a bit of jellyfishing gameplay. Now, it's possible that this quote could be entirely inaccurate, and the years had slowly blurred his memory. This could be evident since none of the NPC models appear to animate and are purely static, though that could potentially be because these screenshots come from within the Totem Tech engine itself. But even then, some of these pictures are clearly of actual gameplay and not just the development environment. Additionally, Sandy is nowhere in sight. I suppose she could be hidden somewhere, but we don't see her in any of these images, so her inclusion could have just as likely have been a false memory on the part of Matt. And what about the jellyfishing gameplay? Well, Matt actually wasn't the only one to tell me about this mechanic.
It had the jellyfishing costume and animations, but the jellyfish being collected was simply turning off the character. No particle effects or anything. Jeremy Arnson, Who Needs Normal, 2024.
I see no signs of the jellyfishing gear costume or any kind of changing tent, but if we peer down to the bottom left corner, we do see an oversized static jellyfish model. One potential answer for the orbs is that they were early stand-ins for collectible jellyfish to show off the mechanic. I could easily be way off there, so don't take that as fact by any stretch. And to be honest, the more I've thought about it, the less sense it makes. I still wanted to include it as a possibility since I don't see any other jellyfish outside of the one, but maybe there are some hidden out in the distance, or maybe there was only ever just the one. As a side note about the jellyfishing mechanic in general, even though we never see SpongeBob wearing the jellyfishing gear in these screenshots, that doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't there. In fact, this grainy floating object in the distance looks to me like it could potentially be a hastily modeled net waiting to be collected. The line here is stick-like and seemingly thinner than this platform here with what I think is a tower of Krabby Patties, and the blob at the end of the stick doesn't bear much resemblance to the orbs, which leads me to believe that it's something else entirely. And from this angle, it looks like it's attached to the line. It's impossible to say for sure, but it makes some amount of sense. Can you tell that I love overthinking things? Back to the true mystery at hand, I was told by Jeremy Arnson last year that he thinks, quote, the orb things were the start of the particle system to add into the special effects later, unquote. I'm not entirely sure if that lines up with what we see in these images, which I did not show him, so he was speaking purely from memory. But at the same time, maybe that does make sense. These transparent orbs could be bubbles that were indeed an early version of a particle effect, which would explain why their size and location don't appear consistent throughout all of these screenshots. Moving on, the treasure chest we saw before is closed in this image, so perhaps the ultimate goal of the demo is to unlock it by collecting so many patties or completing some other task. And then when you open it, it turns out to be a horrific mimic working for Creepypasta Patrick, and then it jumps out of the TV, eats your parents, and kicks your dog. Here on the right, we see those pillars that be a horrific mimic working for creepypasta Patrick, and then it jumps out of the TV, eats your parents, and kicks your dog. Here on the right, we see those pillars that SpongeBob was jumping on before, and another wireframe beside it. The pillars look like they lead to another series of platforms that then lead out farther to the right of the map. The only thing that's even possible to make out is what appears to be a second Mr. Krabs, as well as a second Patrick model standing out in the distance. And that's confirmed by the following two images. Why are they out here? Well, Patrick is probably plotting his escape to the real world. But perhaps the Mr. Krabs model serves as a taskmaster, like he tells you to collect so many Krabby Patties to open the treasure chest or something. Why the original models back on Conch Street couldn't do that? I don't know. The only other screenshot I have just shows SpongeBob walking across the polygonal environment. Not terribly interesting, so I guess I saved the worst for last. All in all, this demo was strange, barren, and a bit surreal, but I can see why something like this being built in just 2 weeks would have impressed the powers that be. I know that I desperately hope that it surfaces someday so that we can understand it better and fully document it. For now though, it will remain an obscure piece of lost media that will probably sadly be forgotten. While the demo was meant more to show off what Callisto's technology was capable of, the coinciding document fleshed out the design team's ideas for the finished product that they hope to create. The said authors of the document were Jeremy Arnson, Vas Nakudian, and Matt Crump. They would also get input from the planned creative director of the game, Lyle Hall. That name might sound especially familiar to those of you who know a bit of the behind the scenes from other more popular SpongeBob games. Lyle would go on to become a producer at and eventually CEO of Heavy Iron Studios, the company that made Battle for Bikini Bottom and the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game. Yep, that's right. This group's vision for the first 3D SpongeBob game would be a PS2 and GameCube experience that was like, quote, Crash Bandicoot meets Ape Escape, unquote. Though in later documents they likened it to Super Mario 64 meets Ape Escape, and then Super Mario 64 meets Spyro. None of these are perfect reflections of what their game would become, of course.
The player will be challenged to guide SpongeBob through the fully interactive, wacky environments of Bikini Bottom, helping his friends, antagonizing his neighbors, jumping across platforms, running from undersea terrors, chasing down jellyfish, and cooking Krabby Patties. The game will also feature interactive storytelling seamlessly inside the game environment, and a multiplayer mode to deepen and extend the game experience as well as increase the title's replayability.
Callisto USA wanted to adapt every aspect of the cartoon into their game that they possibly could, from the art style and humor to the animations themselves.
The game will naturally adopt the look and feel of the 2D cartoon, recreated in 3D and mimicking the art style, character models, color palettes, and animation. We will pull as much fiction and content from the cartoon as we can to enrich the game, story, and characters with the same wacky, off-the-wall humor, in order to maintain the illusion of interiors that are much larger on the inside than they appear on the outside. We will use a fade or screen wipe effect to transition between exterior and interior locations. As so much of his personality is communicated via SpongeBob's facial expressions, it is vital that the game allows for his face to be seen frequently. This will be accomplished in 2 ways. 1. The camera and control system will give the player direct control over SpongeBob so that he can face the screen at any time. 2. The animation system will allow for SpongeBob to do a number of idle animations should the player leave him still for a few moments. There will be the opportunity for SpongeBob to turn and face the screen and act out his signature zany manner. It would really push it over the top to have access to as much authentic or even new SpongeBob audio as possible, including sound effects, voiceover, dialogue, and music.
While it was said in previous interviews with Callisto leadership that many members of the development team were big fans of the show, there are some clear inconsistencies in their writing that prove not everyone coming up with the ideas were an avid watcher. Based on some things I was told by a couple of different sources, I personally believe that Vas Nakudian was likely responsible for most of the oddities that we will see throughout these pages, but I will expound on that in an upcoming documentary on the Who Needs Normal channel.
The game will take place in Bikini Bottom, the undersea world of the SpongeBob cartoon. Locations will include all of the familiar places such as SpongeBob's pineapple home and his neighbor's pads, hangouts like the Crab Shack and Chum Bucket, and areas like the Jellyfish Fields and Hooky Carnival. Bro's never even seen the show.
There are multiple instances throughout Callisto's planning that refer to the Krusty Krab as the quote-unquote Crab Shack. Oh boy, I love getting crabs at the Crab Shack. And here in a bit, you'll see that they just as bizarrely call Mr. Krabs himself Mr. Crab. In other areas though, this is corrected to the proper names. This inconsistency was likely due to the somewhat chaotic creative process that was employed while writing all of these ideas out. One person would work on one section while someone else did another. It was messy, and this issue would continue to cause problems throughout the rest of the dev cycle.
Like the cartoon, the game will take place underwater and preserve the humorous properties and representation of water in SpongeBob, meaning it will include campfires, fireworks, and other such aquatic absurdities presented in real-time 3D. The level environments will consist of a combination of exterior and interior scenes, with a focus on the outside areas.
The creative team decided they didn't want this game to be tied down to one idea or one story, because the SpongeBob cartoon itself didn't play by those rules week to week.
Inspired by the episodic nature of the cartoon series, the levels will be structured in a similarly episodic fashion, and each of the levels will use an episode as its creative theme to define its location, goals, and interactions. Rather than focus on a single villain, global conflict, and final resolution, this game will be presented as a collection of adventures. Like episodes, the theme and goal of each level may be very different from any other, but they will all keep within the established fiction and gameplay. There will be a broad range of level goals, immediate and long-term, themes, conflicts, and villains, including scenarios centered on SpongeBob and his misadventures with Squidward, Plankton, Mr. Crab, and other friends and neighbors.
The stories for the various levels or episodes at this stage were ripped straight from the earliest season of the show itself. Specifically, they used the plot of the show's pilot as an example of a possible idea, though my personal guess is that this was only ever an example and likely wouldn't have ever been implemented.
In each level/episode, SpongeBob will meet up with one of the cast and be asked to complete a number of different tasks in order to acquire access to the next area. So, one example would be centered on SpongeBob's goal to get a job at the Krusty Krab. But before Mr. Crab will hire him, SpongeBob needs to retrieve the three-way spatula from the cave at the edge of Jellyfish Fields. So, SpongeBob would set off for Jellyfish Fields to track down the special spatula, and once he has completed the task of retrieving the spatula, he may return to see Mr. Crab about getting that job and playing in a new level/episode.
Eventually, these episodes would somehow tie together into one larger, cohesive plot.
The overall story will begin with smaller, more immediate goals that are easily achievable, but there will also be references to a larger goal that will be revealed slowly as the game progresses. As SpongeBob meets up with his various friends and journeys through the different areas of Bikini Bottom, he will acquire new props along the way, giving him new actions and abilities.
They wanted the players' interactions and the choices that SpongeBob makes when interacting with other characters or the environment to be impactful and affect the in-game world around them. The ideas for SpongeBob's in-game abilities were originally going to be much more unique to a given scenario.
Double jump/float. When the player presses jump again while in the air, SpongeBob will do a sponge puff expand and gently float his way down for a soft landing and some extra jump distance. Karate chop. This will be SpongeBob's main offensive move when he is not using or carrying any interactive props. A quick button press will deliver a quick hi-ya chop in the direction SpongeBob is facing. Absorb and spray. SpongeBob will have the ability to absorb certain liquids into his porous skin and then release the liquid as a game action. Some things he could absorb would be Krabby Patty special sauce, heavy water, or even octopus/squid ink. Sponge slide. In some tight corners, SpongeBob will need to use his sponge slide ability, which allows him to slide short distances along his flat, spongy self. Ripping pants. SpongeBob will be able to rip his pants from time to time in order to crack up and distract any on-screen characters. Nose flute. Like the Pied Piper, SpongeBob will learn how to play a tune on his nose, enabling him to lure jellyfish, distract enemies, open doors, and more. Ah yes, exactly as the Pied Piper did.
Outside of these inherent abilities, there was also meant to be a number of items or power-ups that SpongeBob could use in certain situations.
Throughout the game, SpongeBob will come across a number of different objects that he can use for various interactions, such as defeating enemies, changing and or navigating the environment, powering up and collecting objects, Below is a list of some of the props and how SpongeBob will play with them. Fishnet, used to catch jellyfish. Spatula, used to swat his enemies and to flip/serve Krabby Patties. Leaf blower/vacuum has two modes, suck and spew, used to blow away enemies and to pick up, carry and spew an object or enemy from one location to another. Bubble blower, used to trap enemies/objects in a floating bubble, allowing SpongeBob to take his time in deciding what to do next. Silent shoes, used to sneak quietly through an area/or throw them far like in the anchor toss. Fishbowl helmet, obtained from Sandy, it enables SpongeBob to easily survive and monitor his water levels while on land or in dry air.
The cast of characters throughout the game was originally going to use several more familiar faces from the show than we would eventually see in the final release.
Patrick Star, SpongeBob's best friend. Patrick will appear frequently throughout the game, serving as a gameplay instructor and taskmaster. Sandy Cheeks, SpongeBob's girlfriend. Sandy will also serve as a gameplay instructor and taskmaster. Squidward, SpongeBob's neighbor and antagonist. Squidward will be used as the source of a number of the conflicts that SpongeBob must resolve. Mr. Crab, SpongeBob's boss. Mr. Crab will serve as a taskmaster. Plankton, Mr. Crab's arch rival. Plankton will be used as the source of a number of the conflicts that SpongeBob must resolve. Others like Gary, Mermaid Man, Barnacle Boy, Neptune, and Satan will also make a significant appearance during the game. What the fuck?
What? Satan? You mean to tell me that the best SpongeBob character, Satan himself, was supposed to be in this game?
Oh, you know, just the cast of SpongeBob. Plankton, Mr. Krabs, Sandy, Satan, Patrick. We've all seen it. We've all seen the episodes. I have no soul.
What do you mean, guys? Come on. You all remember everyone's favorite SpongeBob character, Satan? Quit messing around. I think we all love that classic episode where Patrick sells his soul to the devil himself in exchange for ice cream, and then after being dragged to hell and eternal damnation, he returns as a hollow husk and devours the soul of everyone in Bikini Bottom. Oh, you don't remember that one? That was one of my favorites growing up. So after reading further into other documents, my best guess is that Satan is actually in reference to the Flying Dutchman. Probably. How anyone got that confused is beyond me.
Callisto proposes the following game objects that will serve as collectibles, placed around each of the levels and interactive power-ups that can affect the player character and gameplay. Jellyfish could have different values and be used for a reoccurring collectible. These should be easily identifiable by number of stingers, colour and appearance. Krabby Patties and or kelp candy bars for health. Spell SpongeBob in spongy letters while in each level. The mythical golden spatula, retrieved from the Fry Cook Hall of Fame, could make the player invulnerable for a period of time. Square sneakers makes him run super fast. I hate Callisto.
Very similarly to another Nickelodeon game being worked on around that time, Rugrats Royal Ransom, Callisto wanted to take aspects of the single-player campaign and turn them into unlockable multiplayer experiences to play with friends and family.
Many of the action levels will contain minigames that will be available for multiplayer play. These games will be introduced in the single-player action levels, complete with AI so that they demonstrate how the multiplayer versions work. Once unlocked and available, outside the single-player game mode, between 2 players and 4 players will be able to complete with each other or against the AI in any of the minigames.
If you've played Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, then in all likelihood you'll remember the karate matches with Sandy and Larry. These are almost certainly an example of a minigame that was meant to be played together. Somehow, I don't think we missed out that much. While the ideas would later be reworked and refined, these were the earliest incarnations of the planned levels and scenarios.
Tree Dome. SpongeBob will journey to visit Sandy at her dome home. Ideas for gameplay in this level include the need for water in the dry air currents that make the player float or fly, and collecting items for Sandy's tea party. SpongeBob will have to watch out for gusting air vents and pecking birds as he treks through the dome. Hooky. SpongeBob will ride fishing hooks up to collect things up top and gain access to areas unavailable by jumping, similar to the air currents from the Tree Dome. The user will then parachute down from the top area to the sandy bottom. He will also have to know which hooks not to take. Crab Shack. SpongeBob will have some basic training to do at the beginning of the game, and so he will begin his lessons at work, flipping Krabby Patties, serving customers in time, stopping Plankton from making off with the recipe, and earning his golden spatula and Employee of the Month statues. He'll need to be fast on his feet when the lunch rush of anchovies arrives. Muscle Beach. SpongeBob will try to gain Sandy's favour by outdoing the Beefcake's display of great strength. We will try to include the humour of the ripped pants and undies as SpongeBob and the Muscleheads compete with ever-increasing displays of strength. Karate Choppers. SpongeBob must fend off Sandy's barrage of karate attacks while navigating a treacherous environment. Pow! Wham! Jellyfish Fields. SpongeBob will have to collect a certain number of jellies within a set time. This is a global level mechanic and will also likely appear as its own minigame. Plankton. SpongeBob must retrieve the recipe for Krabby Patties that has been stolen by Plankton, with a chance to explore the chum bucket. The player could run into the secret ingredient analyzer for some laughs. Treasure Hunt. SpongeBob will go hunting for lost treasure at the far reaches of Bikini Bottom. Boating School. SpongeBob will complete a brief training before beginning the boating exercise, and then he will have to pass the exam on a closed course. Tide Pools. As in the Treetop Dome, the user will be constrained by water and air as they venture up a beach, going from tide pool to tide pool, scouring for ingredients to Mr. Krabs' Krabby Patties special sauce.
Overall, Callisto believed that Totem Tech would allow them to turn this project into the definition of an interactive cartoon, with models that utilize stretch and squash animations that felt alive. They hoped that they could create authentic sound effects and record brand new dialogue with all of the actors to build a game that was as true to the source material as it possibly could be.
Developed by Callisto at its Austin studio, the team would likely be staffed with the following key personnel: Stretch Williams, Executive Producer; Anthony Marone, Technical Director; Lyle Hall, Creative Director; Matt Skibilia, Art Director; Jeremy Artson, Lead Level Designer; Mike Bowman, Senior Programmer; Jeanette O, 3D Level Artist; Tony Salvaggio, 3D Animator/Modeler.
Lyle Hall's role as creative director of the game is fascinating to me, given his existing resume in the present. I couldn't say for sure which ideas in this document and the future ones are his, though I have some educated guesses, and he was rarely at the main office in Austin to collaborate directly, but it's clear he at least had some impact on what this game became. So, when criticizing this game and praising Battle for Bikini Bottom, just remember, the same guy technically had a hand in both.
I'm now going to do these names correctly. Stretch Williams, Executive Producer; Yanni Moran, Technical Director; Leroy, Creative Director; Mr. Bill, Art Director; Jimmy, Lead Level Director; Mike Beam, Janet O, 3D Level Artist; Tony Savile.
That's all I have for you today, but I'll be sharing... Please don't.
Apps that were secretly spying on you. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Tuv, and before we get into the topic, I do want to take a moment to just thank you guys. I was getting a little sentimental earlier, just thinking about like the fact that I'm still a YouTuber, which I plan to continue to keep going for years on end. By the way, I want to make that clear. I always say like I'm gonna be a Markiplier of YouTube, just emphasizing that I want to be here for years. This is what I love doing. I love being a content creator. And with that comes you guys. Believe me, I'm aware that the channel is nothing without you guys. So thank you so much for supporting me, liking the way I explain things. It means the world to me. It doesn't go unnoticed. I notice so much when it comes to you guys supporting me. And I just feel like I haven't said thank you in a hot minute, at least on this platform. I feel like I say it a lot in my streams or on my Instagram stories. But yeah, to you guys here on the main channel that look forward to a new Morbid video every week, thank you guys. And thank you to the people that tune in once a year, you know. I appreciate you guys so much. With that being said, I do have a little update, I guess, besides the new room setup, which I did introduce in the last video. We do have a new light, and this light is extremely bright. You guys want to see what the room looks like without it? Look. So, oh my god. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Like, no. Look how bright this could get. This is 10%. I'm gonna turn it to 100%. At least my camera adjusts, but that is crazy. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Wow. But yeah, I'm gonna give you guys an out right now if you want to skip to the main topic of the video, because you're about to watch a clip of me yapping about our new Exist t-shirts. I'm actually wearing one right now. But we did make a cute little promotional video. Like I said, you don't have to watch it. I put a timestamp. You could skip it if you want. You could watch it if you want. But just know that there are 4 new t-shirts out right now, and that commercial is about to cut me off. Well, 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 if it isn't my friends from last week, and the week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that, you're probably wondering why I'm interrupting this video. Well, you may have guessed it, but we have new shirts over at earldoesn'texist.com. But before you head over to the website, let me show you what we're selling. I know there's a lot of memes about YouTubers who make horrendous merch, and I would never set you guys up like that. So first off, we have this shirt right here, We Don't Exist, and it's a bunch of kittens holding hands in a circle. So cute. And if you actually look closely, you can see they have buttholes. So maybe that increases sales or something. We also have this code kitten tee. That's right, it's a kitten made out of strings of code. If that's not gonna empty your wallet, I don't know what will. Not much to say about that. If you like computers, if you like coding, if you like cats, by the way, this is the cat drop. The next 2 designs that I'm gonna show you are also about cats. Maybe you're not a fan of black t-shirts. And that's completely okay. For the first time ever when it comes to Exist, we have a white t-shirt, and yes, it says I don't exist in a Looney Tunes style. Look at this cute cat with a chipped tooth. Wow, we are popping off this season, aren't we? Yeah, you better agree. And due to popular demand, our Exist cat tee is coming back. These actually sold out, I believe, in less than 24 or 48 hours. I forget which one it was. But basically, they sold out extremely quick, and people were begging me to bring it back. So you know what? Daddy's gonna bring it back. Don't be shocked when you try to add it to your cart and it says sold out. So you better go to the store, earldoesn'texist.com or 1-800-EXIST. Thank you guys so much on the support when it comes to my clothing brand. Like I said, I would never set you guys up. I would never make some horrendous YouTuber merch. By the way, y'all better include me in conversations when it comes to YouTuber merch, because I know I crush everyone else. But with that being said, thanks for listening. Goodbye. All right, now that that beautiful commercial is over, let's head on to the actual topic of the video. iRecorder sneaked in malicious code after Google Play Store approval. Now, you might want to check your phone after this first one. Nah, I'm just kidding. Most of these are taken down. Back in September of 2021, a developer uploaded what seemed like a totally innocent screen recording app to the Google Play Store. The app was called iRecorder Screen Recorder, and it did exactly what you'd expect. It just helped people record their screens. For almost a year, everything was completely normal. Users downloaded it, left reviews, and the app quietly built up its loyal user base. By March of 2023, it had racked up over 50,000 installations. People trusted it because it was doing its job. It's literally a basic screen recorder app, or at least that's what they thought. Then, around August of 2022, the developer pushed out what looked like a routine update, version 1.3.8. Users who had the app set to auto-update probably didn't even notice. I mean, who pays attention to every single app update notification, right? What those 50,000 users didn't know was that this harmless update had secretly turned their phone into a surveillance device. The researchers at ESET discovered that the new version was now recording 1 minute of audio from their microphone every 15 minutes and uploading it to some unknown server. And that wasn't even the worst part. It was also stealing files from their phones, specifically targeting documents, photos, videos, and basically anything that might contain sensitive information. The malicious code was based on something called AMyth, which is essentially a toolkit that lets hackers remote control Android devices. And yes, the remote control bit in general, had been going on for a while. Anyway, the researchers named this customized version Rat, and what made it so sneaky was that it operated within the app's existing permissions. Since iRecorder already needed microphone access to record screens, users had no reason to be suspicious. So they had been spied on for a while without having the slightest idea. Well, at least until ESET noticed. They alerted Google, and they took the app down from the Play Store. The thing is, we still don't know who was behind this or why they did it. The targeting of specific file types suggests it might have been part of some espionage campaign, but there's no concrete evidence pointing to any particular group. What we do know is that it's extremely rare for developers to wait almost a year before weaponizing their apps like this. It happens, but clearly in this case, these criminals must have had a lot of patience. Shein would regularly access the clipboard. Alright guys, I looked it up. It's pronounced Shein. Alright, so I don't want to hear it. Sheen. I looked it up. Apparently it's Shein. Okay, the more you know. I know people already don't like the company due to their practices, but today we're going to be talking about them accessing your clipboard. Now, like I said, Shein is known for its low-costing products. But while users were hunting for deals, Shein was hunting for something else, your clipboard data. So here's what happened. Microsoft researchers discovered that an older version of the Shein Android app, specifically version 7.9.2 from December of 2021, was secretly recording everything users copied to their clipboard. And we're talking about everything. Passwords, credit card numbers, personal messages, literally whatever you copied and were about to paste somewhere else. Let me show you how this worked with this graphic, courtesy of Microsoft. So when you'd start or resume the Shein app, it would go through this whole chain of processes that eventually led to something called Market Clipboard Phase Linker. This sneaky little function would check your clipboard text for specific character sequences, $signs and forward slashes. If it found what it was looking for, boom, your clipboard content would get sent as a parameter to their servers at a URL that resolved to something like api-service.jshein.com. At the time, Shein had over 100 million downloads on Google Play, and that means that over 100 million people had no idea their copy and paste activity was being monitored. Microsoft